Today on The Special Sauce, we are joined by Jonjo O'Hara from Tenet Recruitment. Jonjo's had a 10-year recruitment career in Melbourne, worked for some amazing businesses before starting his own agency 4 years ago. He's had some huge results over the journey, and today we'll dive into just how he's done it. We'll look at the systems and processes he's implemented into his day-to-day that help drive high performance, his mindset, motivators, and how he manages his time between billing, running an agency, all with a young family at home. Jonjo, welcome to the show, mate.
Good to be here. Thanks, chaps.
Good to have you on. I will say I'm pretty excited about this one, only because we've had, what have we done? About 8-10 episodes so far. But in looking for people to get on this show, we've had 3 different people drop your name. So there's some people out there that...
there's no pressure.
Yeah.
Jonjo, no pressure, right?
And that was a late call up as well, so it's a little bit serendipitous, right?
And a late call up. So, mate, thank you for dropping in. Now, we will talk about the recruitment stuff, but there's something we need to talk about first that's not recruitment related. For the listeners, we were just chatting before this started. I asked Jonjo if he went to the Oasis concert, which he did. How was it, firstly?
Real. Best
Good.
ever gig.
And in that conversation, Chris here has said that he has never been to a concert.
Not once in my life. 39 years old, I've never seen a band.
What's that about?
I've seen DJs, my younger years. So I don't know if that counts, but as in like a legit concert band at a stadium or a, large venue. Not once.
I find that.
Will you take me once, man?
We'll do it. We'll do one. Had I have known this, I would have done something, maybe society Christmas party type stuff or whatever.
But yeah, next time a good band comes through, I want to go.
Yeah.
I want to see what it's all about.
I didn't go to Oasis, but I went to Rufus Du Sol the other night. That was pretty good. Hadn't really heard too much about him or knew about him. My wife's a big fan, but it was a good night.
Yeah, it's quite uppy, isn't it? It's quite nice.
Yeah, it was pretty good. But we'll talk about the recruitment stuff, mate, because I think it's been a really interesting couple of years in the recruitment space, which I'm sure you've been across. So I guess in your market and your space, what have you seen over the last, let's say, 12 months or so, or 2025?
It's been tumultuous, to be honest. So we're tech sales focused exclusively.
Yeah.
And the market's been in what you'd call probably depression for the last 12 months. 12 months, we saw headcount drop 40 to 50% in some businesses, a real retraction on headcount, a lot of layoffs, and the market's just starting to recover. So we've seen probably what you call flat growth rate compared to the previous years where it was a real boom. So it's been a boom and bust type environment really for tech sales recruitment.
What in that tech sales space, what typically drives the boom or bust type scenario?
It's usually led by the US for us, and its sentiment on client growth. Are they going to put headcount in the APAC region based on how they're performing and their expectation of if there's growth in the market? And when we're talking to our candidates that are sales reps, there's just a real caution from buyers. They're just not selling as much right now. And as such, businesses aren't taking on as much headcount because they don't think they've got the market for those reps to sell into.
Yeah.
During I guess, those times where you said it's been tumultuous and tough, how do you, I guess, just mentally keep yourself in the game? How do you keep going? Because it's easy, right? I think a lot of recruiters say, oh, fuck it. Like, it's the too hard basket. You've done it for a long time. I'm sure it's not the first time you've seen a dip in the market, right? How do you handle that?
I think just knowing that it's supposed to be hard. Recruitment is supposed to be hard. And we had a bit of a unique one in that our first 2 years as a startup were fantastic, right? Reached the heights. Whereas most businesses, when you start a business, the first couple of years, you're really grinding, right? It's been the opposite for us. We've had a bit of a reverse cycle where we started at the top of the market, had my biggest ever year in recruitment, my year one as a solopreneur, and then really not crashing down, but finding a much more difficult market the last 2 years. It's just realizing that I've been doing this for 10 years. Recruitment is hard. It's supposed to be hard. That's why the rewards are so big and why few are great at it, to be honest.
Yeah. It's funny you mentioned like it is hard. I was telling Chris before, I had a conversation with a recruiter last night. They've been in recruitment for about 2 years and they were speaking to me about potentially moving on. And don't get me wrong, I need candidates for roles. And, when I asked, what is it like, why are you looking to leave? And they were like, oh, it's the market that I'm in is really tough at the moment. And my response was, look, you can go to a competitor. The market's the same. It's going to be tough. You could go to a completely different vertical or market. It's going to be tough. Like, I think we've definitely seen it. There's different pockets perhaps doing slightly better than others, but I wouldn't say too many agencies have absolutely smashed it out of the park 2025.
No, neither. I think it's definitely been a better year than 24, right? For most agencies, I'd say. But still, is it, sort of post that boom, right? It's nowhere near that. And I think that sort of gave us a bit of a false economy, right? That boom for a lot of agencies that, we did realize it was a boom. That wasn't the norm those 2 years, right? But, as you said, Jonjo, recruitment's always tough, right? If it was easy, companies wouldn't employ recruiters to fill their jobs, right? And they wouldn't pay fees. They do it themselves. So
it sounds like it's been a tougher market for all recruiters across the board. From what we were discussing, sales is a little bit at mercy of the cycle.
Yeah.
Are there any other industries that you guys see where the billings can be so up and down? Or would you say tech and sales is an outlier in that sense?
I think sales, and that's an area that's close to our heart because we always did it. But I always felt that sales recruitment was you're very at the mercy of the market, because so often, like, sales and marketing for that matter are some of the first jobs that get sacked off when the market's dropping, but they're also some of the first roles that come back when the market picks up. So I think, anyone who's been in sales recruitment has just been up and down the last little bit. I think construction's one that's always very driven by, perhaps maybe you'd call it economic factors. I don't know, like at the moment, last year building construction was really quiet. This year it's really picked up. But even then, like, Brisbane is really pumping based on the Olympics and the investment in infrastructure. Sydney's pretty busy. I think a lot of Victorians feel that Victoria is way behind a lot of the other states. I don't know.
Yeah.
What do you reckon?
No, I agree. I think
Government's another one that's like that.
Yeah, that's right. I think tech, obviously look, last year that was really tough, right? As in tech recruitment for various sort of factors. This year it's definitely picked up. It's sort of chalk and cheese to what it was last year. I think there's a lot of positive sentiment in that market heading into 2026. But yeah, overall, as I said, I think it's, I guess it's, you make, what am I trying to say? You make what you can out of the market, right? And I think a lot of it just depends on attitude. There's always going to be opportunity. And if there's one thing I think we've learned, Lee, Lee and I were really lucky. We started our careers during the GFC, right? People say, why were you lucky? Because that was a, shit time to recruit for anyone that's old enough to remember those days. But it taught us just the power of just building relationships, just being in touch with your candidates, being in touch with your clients, because the cycle always comes around. So what goes up must go down.
That's it.
But I think it's horses for courses a lot of times.
You touched on it there. You touched on it before, just about that you pretty much are exclusively in that tech sales space. So I mean, give us a bit more detail in that, like what kind of roles specifically and what kind of clients you're working with.
Yeah, so we're a go-to-market specialist recruiter for the ANZ region, and go-to-market for us is anything that's attributable to revenue. So it's VP sales, country manager, account executives, SDRs, account managers, BDMs, through to customer success, pre-sales, post-sales, and marketing.
Yep. And your client base are typically who?
It's typically, our ICP is a startup or a scale-up, and they typically have less than 200 staff in Australia, and they'd be a software company or adjacent in the tech industry.
Yeah, got ya. So just to, I guess, for the audience sake, with your background, 10 odd years in recruitment, one thing I wanted to talk to you about is a short stint in internal, right? Now, probably I would say for Chris and I, 99% of the agency recruiters we speak to on a daily basis, if they are looking, 99% want to go internal for all different reasons, right? It's normally the same reason. I know for you though, that probably wasn't the reason. So I guess tell us a little bit more about your time in internal and TA, being on the other side of the process, and perhaps the good, bad and ugly. Like, what did you learn from it? What did you like, not like, that kind of stuff?
Yeah, so to set the scene, I did a 6-month stint with MYOB, fantastic time. And you're right, I was one of those recruiters that would have never thought about taking an internal role ever. It was something that I had to do at that time. That my hand was forced, you might say, in terms of going internal for that 6-month period. But it turned out to be probably one of the most fortuitous decisions I've ever made for my career. I'll tell you why. It ended up being a fantastic experience to really get close to a business internally and understand the mechanics of how talent acquisition works and be a stakeholder in talent acquisition. So what that meant on a positive was that you get really good, close relationships with hiring managers who confide in you, who spend a lot of time with you, who are very happy to work with you on roles. You get a real good understanding of the business, its direction, what the C-level is doing and how talent plays into their objectives. The downsides are you have a huge pipeline of work.
Yeah.
And unlike agency recruitment, those roles have to be filled regardless. Hiring managers' expectations are still out of line with market, whether you work for an agency or internal. They're the same for the most part. So you're still doing a lot of managing expectations, but you can't walk away from that role if you don't want to work it anymore. So that can be tough. You miss the client interaction, of course, of doing the same opportunity over and over. But the other side to that is you really, really understand the pitch for the business you're working for. You can really confidently go to market and understand why somebody might want to work there and understand why they might not be a good fit. So for me, it turned out to be a really good learning opportunity, a really good networking building opportunity. I think I'm a much better recruiter on the whole for that experience than versus. Another example I'll give you is just understanding the internal recruiter mindset. For instance, I remember having a conversation in my first few weeks there and talking to an agency, and I was on the inside and saying, I'm not going to use an agency at all because I'm going to be here for 6 months and there's no way that I'm going to let myself use an agency. And then kind of checking myself and realizing, did I just say that?
You've turned into that guy.
Yeah, I'm that guy. You know what I mean? And that was my own competitive nature as to, look, I'm going to do a good job here and I don't need you guys. But it was a good opportunity for me to realize, well, why does that make me different from somebody else who's working in internal recruitment? They can be competitive. They want to do a good job. They're great at their jobs too. So I think it's helped me with my relationships and my business development with recruiting internal stakeholders since, to be honest, because I can speak their language and I understand what they're doing on a day-to-day. I think most external recruiters are deaf to that.
Yeah.
And that's probably the fault of most recruitment leaders, that we have this culture of us against internal, and internal recruiters can just smell it a mile off.
Yeah. No, I agree. And I think that's something we're always taught, right? Like I think, rightly or wrongly, I know when we first sort of started, it was, straight to line, obviously for obvious reasons, right? But it was almost, I don't know if it's still exists. It's an us against them mentality, right? But, I'm lucky enough, my wife works in internal as well. So, she was on the agency side for a while, now internal. So I get a bit of an insight in terms of some of the challenges, and it's exactly the same as you sort of mentioned, right? You can't just walk away. Old mate, the hiring manager is in the canteen at lunch.
Did
asking where's my candidate?
Yeah. Did you ever get to a point where you were tempted to stay in the TA, or was that kind of 6 months enough?
It was enough for me.
Yeah.
Yeah, there was definitely a time stamp on it, and it served its purpose. It was great, but I was getting itchy feet probably halfway through.
Yeah,
I would say.
What did you miss most?
I missed the competition. I missed the business development, talking to new clients. I felt uncomfortable in a role without real targets and goals.
Yeah.
And I felt uncomfortable in the comfortable nature of a 9 to 5.
Yeah. So a lot of those recruiters we speak to that want to go internal, I feel sometimes they perhaps don't understand what the role is day to day. So what advice would you give someone who's in agency at the moment, if they were considering to go internal? What would you say are like more the think about this or consider this before you do that?
I think consider that you're going to have to love sourcing, because that's going to be your entire day. And you're still going to have a manager who needs you to source roles quite quickly, and you're going to be working more jobs than you've ever worked before. You're still going to have the same expectations of hiring managers and the same timelines for the most part. If you are doing it purely because you don't want to do business development, could be a good move. If you're doing it because you're curious about business as a whole, you love sourcing, you love talent identification, could be a good move. And if you're looking for a role which is without the same stresses of agency recruitment, yeah, I think it ticks those boxes.
Yeah, okay.
For sure.
Cool. Let's talk about, and you alluded to this earlier, just from a billings perspective, when you started your business, you had some of your first 2 years were like your best ever years in recruitment, which I think we've started a business as well. And geez, that would have been handy in the first 2 years. I think probably helped set up for success. If you're comfortable in sharing it, like what kind of numbers were you doing in those first couple of years?
So timing's important, and we can talk about that. But my first year as a business owner in my spare room was mid-nines. It was about 950, 960 my first year. Similar the year after, a little bit less, but that was my biggest, just outside the $1 million club, the almost $1 million club, which is not quite
Did you take yourself out?
Cool.
Did still take yourself out for lunch or
But do you still like have those candles turned down or took a counter in those times?
Yeah,
you still
yeah,
see them pop up and you go, you
wish made it over the line.
Yeah. You know, like always remember that name, huh?
But yeah, it was close. Would have loved to get to the $1 million mark. So I know that's it's a little bit superficial, but that is still a goal. Just missed out on that, but really pleased to have done that by myself. You know, basically working out of a back bedroom of my house. And the other probably biggest thing that I was really pleased about was the majority of that, almost all, to be honest, were net new clients as well. Timing was really important. It was a bull market for sure in tech sales. But to go and build that market and do that year one gave me a lot of confidence that I was in the right place and I'd made the right decision.
Yeah.
And take us, oh, sorry, go ahead.
There you go.
No, just on that from, I guess, a new business development point of view, right? I think one thing a lot of our listeners, perhaps maybe more on the junior end, struggle with is that, right? How do you go about that in terms of what's your sort of strategy? Is it, candidate driven? Do you map your market and, you constantly out in front of market? What do you do that allows you to get those results?
So I've been lucky enough that the industry that I recruit in is technology sales, and technology sales professionals, you would say, are at the forefront of selling in terms of methodology, style, and I've been able to learn from them in the way that I've been recruiting them over the years. So the way that enterprise sellers are being successful in my market is largely network driven. So that became my go-to quite early on, a combination of social, network, and direct. So I had a network already, and if you're a junior recruiter, you're gonna have to borrow a network quite early on if you're gonna have big billings, because you just really can't do it from a cold net new desk. But what I was able to do is leverage that network. So even today, from that year one, if I'm ever doing outreach business development, it's almost always exclusively a referral. So even if I'm doing a cold, I'll be going and asking somebody for a referral into that person, or at worst, I know this person. Can we talk?
Yeah, right. And are you like you talk about like building networks? Are you a big kind of lunches, dinners, events, networking events type of recruiter? Is that a big part of what you do?
It's interesting. It hasn't been that way, and that might be a result of my prominence was in the bull market of 2021, 22, when you didn't need to do that really. We were talking about this offline, but it's really flipping, I believe, to becoming a lot more relationship driven. So now that's a big part of what I'm doing. I'm trying to meet every person in my network, but 2 or 3 years ago, I wasn't, and you didn't need to. I did that massive year without, basically virtual, doing close to $1 million. But now I think it's more important than ever.
Yeah. That I guess when you were working for other agencies like pre-COVID, and when you first started, like, for those junior listeners, once again, how did you build that network and get up and running because you're still building good numbers then, right? Before you work for yourself. Like how did you do it then? Like what was the strategy early days?
Like I mentioned, I think you've got to borrow a network. That's the honest truth. It's going to take a long time to build a network, and you need to be able to provide some value to build a network at a senior level. So in order to do that, that often means you need to bring opportunities to that network, provide some kind of value that's going to be able to get them to notice you and realize that you're credible. So it was built over time. By the time I did that close to $1 million a year, I'd been in recruitment for 5 or 6 years.
Yep.
Really. So, it's really a game of attrition. Time spent. I don't think you can scale that within a couple of years doing anything, really. I think it's time served in your market and doing a good job over and over again.
Yeah, agree.
I agree. That's the one thing we've heard from everyone on this podcast, right? All high performers, just consistency in market, and I like what you sort of said about getting out there, just meeting people. And that's the demand we see from a lot of clients now. Whereas you're absolutely right. 2 years, 3 years ago, probably didn't need to. And that was just a sign of the market, right? Whereas now it's more important than ever, I think, in this world that we live in where, working from home, virtual, all that tech at our disposal. I think standing out, especially in the Melbourne market as well, we're so relationship driven, right? Something we've probably prided ourselves on as a business community. More important than ever now.
Yeah.
Agreed.
Billing $1 million, that's a lot of jobs that you got to fill. So give us a bit of an understanding in terms of, pipeline wise and systems and process and how you work. Like how many roles are you typically working on at a time, and how do you manage that volume?
So to do those numbers in my market, what that looks like, typically based on a 25 to 30% fill rate, is you're doing around 15 live jobs at any one time. And that's going to be consistent throughout the year, pretty much. And the way that I approach it is really about spending the majority of my time at top of funnel, right? So top of funnel is providing a shortlist across all those jobs quite quickly, and being able to shortlist them and then top up that 15 jobs, basically. The way that I tend to think about it is to detach myself emotionally from everything that's post shortlist. There's still work to do there, and I do value spending a lot of time in coaching candidates. That's something I think I'm pretty good at now, particularly for senior sales. But in terms of emotional attachment, past shortlist, forget about it. It's really just numbers. And I think the thing is we go to market recruiters telling our clients that we're specialists, and there's this whole kind of marketing thing about being really focused on a couple of roles and we're a specialist and this is where we spend our time. But that's not how you get to $1 million, particularly in my industry. It's not. You can do a great job, but what you need to focus on is being top of funnel and ensuring that pipeline is consistent and it's being shortlisted pretty quickly, but then moving on.
So what's quickly, like you pick up a job Monday morning, when have you normally got it shortlisted by?
So previously I'd worked to KPIs based on shortlist times. I don't do it that way now. What I work off now is communication time. So if I have a live role on with a client, I want communication with that client every 48 hours, whether that's a candidate sent or a phone call with a client to qualify it again. That needs to be done within 48 hours. And if I'm not getting activity within those 48 hours, it becomes a B grade job.
Yeah, right.
What it would have looked like previously, and what I still do now, if I would expect to have a shortlist with a client within about 5 days.
So just on that, like with that communication, if you don't hear back from the client or you feel that perhaps the engagement's dropped off a little bit, it kind of goes from an A grade to a B grade or a C grade type?
It does, scenario. At least in my forecasting mind, right? I still need to try and get some movement there by sending another candidate, following up the next day. And that might go on for a week or two. I've got a client that I've been chasing for 2 or 3 weeks. I'm still going to keep chasing. But in terms of my attachment to that role, I'm not forecasting it.
Yeah.
It's gone.
Yeah.
Right. If it comes back on, that's great. But in terms of a live role that I feel I can forecast, I really want to be getting some communication from the client within 48 hours at any time.
Yeah.
And you talked about, I think, offline as well, when we're sort of preparing for this, having those sort of 15 roles working on that based on just on your fill rate, doesn't matter if 1 or 2 fall through, right? Because there's enough there. There's enough sort of volume. So talk through that mindset of that. Where's that sort of helped you in the past or, anything like that?
For me, it's really been about gamification. So 15 jobs, and I have a timeline as to I need to get candidates shortlisted for those roles within a specific set of time. That's all I'm focused on. And for me, success is getting those roles shortlisted each week. I have a daily and a weekly target to hit. Everything outside of that is largely out of my control. And I think recruiters, we too easily get into the mindset where we feel like we can influence more than we can. And I feel like that's a little bit taboo to talk that way, because I think we're trained in recruitment to talk about influencing candidates. In my industry, that just doesn't happen. I'm dealing with senior people who can negotiate. They know how to qualify a role. They'll take the role that they're going to take. And my influencing is pretty marginal, I'll be honest. The only thing I can consider is making sure that my pipeline is full at all times. And I'm doing everything I can to do good work to get good quality candidates to my clients within a short space of time. And everything else is out of my control.
Yeah.
It simplifies it so much. Get the jobs on, put good candidates in there, work with the urgency, and there you go.
And look, there's an emotional attachment to that which just wears you down.
Yeah.
I'm not one of these people where come Friday or Thursday, I'm waiting for a call about a deal ever. I really don't think about deals at all once they're in pipeline because you can't control it. So all you can control is what's in front of you. And yeah, I think recruiters can easily be thrown off course by trying to meddle in processes once they're underway. The client will hire who they want to hire, and they want to hire who they want to hire. They want to make it their decision. So I feel, we talked about this offline as well. I think if you want to work with a recruiter, you should work with a recruiter that's busy. Having a good pipeline is not only good for yourself, for your emotional health, to be able to detach from the outcomes that you can't control. It's better for the client. It's better for the candidate as well, because I'm not relying on any person taking a job to pay my mortgage at any one time. And the fact that I'm not means that I'm able to provide good relationships, good support to the client and the candidate. I want the deal to get done, but I'm not going to strangle it because I need the outcome ultimately. And that's better for everybody involved.
100%. I think, that makes real sense, right? Where you obviously care about the outcome, you want the money, but you're not, for want of a better term, you're not desperate for it.
That's right.
If that makes sense. And, trying to push, a candidate into a client that in 6 months, you're getting that phone call, hey, we need that replacement. It's shit for you, shit for the client, shit for the candidate. When do you move on from a role? Like, in terms of, not you yourself, but like in terms of roles that you're recruiting, when do you, sort of make that decision, say, hey, to the client, candidate, whoever, is there a point where you say, enough's enough? And
it'd be a long time, to be honest. Yeah. I think one of the things that we were taught, and probably maybe the biggest difference about our agency, I would say, about myself and my business partner, is we're extremely low ego and extremely objective. So I see this on LinkedIn sometimes where you get these recruiters saying, I prospected this client for 12 months and they had 100 touch points and never got back to me. Guess what? Now they're on the market and they want me to work with them as a candidate. Should I work with them? Yes, you should work with them, because what's in it for you to your ego to get in the way and tell that guy, or person to shove off.
Yep.
There's nothing above all else as a recruiter. You should be pragmatic. Maybe you weren't useful to them during that time. It's not personal. If they might be useful to you in the next opportunity, then work with them. It just makes no sense to take any kind of personal retribution or personal. You shouldn't let personal ego get in the way of being pragmatic in recruitment, because I think that's probably one of our biggest strengths as an industry, is just being extremely pragmatic at any time.
Yeah. I think reality is, and this kind of ties in with what you were saying before about qualifying roles. If the role's urgent or the client has a need, they will get in touch, right? Like if they're not replying, it's just because they don't need you. right now. And that's cool because at least you know you're not going to waste your time with them either. So I like that mindset, some of that stuff you've covered off there. Good
No,
stuff.
definitely. I think it's also from the candidate's perspective as well, right? Like we've all been in situations in our careers where, you know, candidates apparently stuffed you over, right? Because they've taken a different role or they've accepted on Friday and then called you on Monday and said, I'm out, right? And as much as that can piss you off and it's frustrating and all that sort of stuff, the reality is there's still people. There's a reason why they did it. Maybe they went about it the wrong way.
That's right.
But, you know, there's still a reason of what maybe they just got a better opportunity for them and their family. And you go, well, you know what, mate, if it's better for you, take it. Like, who am I to tell you not to? But I think it's that, and, you know, I've been guilty in the past as well, especially in my early years where I've said, I'm not going to never speak with that candidate again. And then you see 3 years later, they're a sales director at a company you've been trying to get into.
That's right.
So, you know, it's just removing that ego piece.
Yeah. Mate, what's what are kind of for you, what are your drivers and motivators, right? Like we've spoken about it a couple of times today, like recruitment's tough. And sure, it's tough and there is financial rewards, but you know, it can't just all be about that. Maybe it is, I don't know. But what are the drivers for you? What gets you out of bed and doing what we do?
Look, for me, it's about discipline. I think motivation for the most part is fleeting. I think it's temporary. I think motivation and long-term goals are too difficult for the industry that we're in. I'm not one of these people that has a picture of a Lamborghini on their desk. I just don't, I feel like the time between those two things is so far and so esoteric that it doesn't make sense to have such a long target. This is personal to me and I've always been like this. So really it's about discipline. It's about doing the hard thing. It's about being uncomfortable. And the metric that I use is if I've felt comfortable for a little bit too long, that's probably a sign that something needs to change. And if you look back at my career trajectory, that's probably every about 3 years or so. And that's been something else because I've reached what I felt as being the ceiling of what I can achieve or what I can learn at that one time.
Yeah.
What does that look like on a week to week or a day to day as a recruiter? It's just extremely time and goal focused. So for me, it's about creating really short dopamine loops that are focused on this 2 hours, this day, and that's it. I get satisfaction by making sure that my pipeline is covered for that day.
Yeah, got you.
And I'm not really thinking about anything else. I think if you do good work and you do that consistently and you do the hard work, that thing over there will come.
Yeah, okay. So just a couple of things there. You mentioned, I guess, setting goals for the day. Do you kind of get to the end of the day and plan the next based on what you've got on? Is it like, you know, every Thursday morning I do BD? Like how deep do you go?
Yeah, good question. To me, it's day to day because our pipeline changes so frequently that we need to be pretty agile to look at our outcomes for the day ahead. It's all about sprints for us. So my sourcing and BD blocks, they're always 2.5 hours. So sourcing would be 2 hours shortlisting, and then I do 30 minutes, which would be outbound. Never more than the 2.5 hours. Why not? Because the next day I'm going to be working on that role in some form anyway. I've got follow-ups, I've got screening calls for that particular role. So I'm going to put that to the next day and then that will take form. I also don't want to lose a day on another role that I'm sourcing for. Can't afford to go 2-3 days without touching a role. So that's why it's always 2.5 hour blocks. And the outcomes for the day are planned a day ahead.
Got ya. And in terms of, I guess, finding, like, obviously you spend a lot of time on sourcing, but from a BD perspective, is that just more about you'll allocate or dedicate time based on the state of your pipeline and whether or not it's thinning out?
Spot on. Yeah, and that it's a little bit crude, but largely anything below what would be my metric for a full pipeline, I'm trying to supplement that with BD. But BD probably is taking the form of something every day as opposed to doing a BD day. I'll probably supplement it and I'll do a BD afternoon a week. But I'm trying to do little threads.
Here and there and everywhere.
Here, there and everywhere, really. Yeah.
Yeah.
And for yourself, I guess on that BD point, you know, what is it? Is it phone first? Is it, I mean, socials, that's something that's, personal brand, that's growing more and more. Just relying on network, or is it candidate driven in terms of reverse marketing, floating? What's your sort of point of play?
It's still predominantly outbound, but what I'm trying to do with social is warm up my prospects before I reach them. So that would typically be an initial message post connect. Second touch point might be some kind of educational document, and that first connect will be either a referral from somebody else, or I'm connecting with you because we know the same people and this is what I do. And then there'd be a follow-up, which would be some kind of educational piece of content. It might be a podcast that I've put together myself. And then the third touch point would be a call.
So it's about adding value first, right, to them, as opposed to, hey, mate, do you have any jobs to fill or whatever it is? You're giving something before you're taking.
That's right.
Yeah. I see a lot of stuff on LinkedIn, different people really kind of promoting different things that they do to make sure that their mind and body is in the right position to put in a good, hard day's work. What about you? Is there anything you do, I guess, to try and keep yourself mentally and physically in tip-top shape to build what you do?
Yeah, and this is something I think about more as I've got older.
Yeah.
When you're young, you don't really think about it. You can go out and have, 10 beers and then next day you're rocking into it in your gym anyway. But it's something you have to be a little bit more considerate of as you get a little bit older. So for me, it's about aligning my energy to the task, which is biggest. We've all heard this before, but it just kind of run true. For me, it'll be about first thing in the morning, I'm trying to get on some calls, like before 9 o'clock. And that just sets up my day. Like when I was playing football, it's always about the first few minutes of the game. You want to get a few touches on the ball. You want to get a tackling. So it kind of sets the rhythm for the rest of the game, kind of gets rid of that nervousness. So I'm trying to get a client call, or if not, a candidate call in before 9 o'clock. Just get a few, just to get the rhythm going. And then my hardest task for the day is going to happen between probably 9 and 11, whatever that might be, basically. I find that I start to lose a little bit of energy kind of close to the mid-afternoon. At that time, I'll probably go for a walk. I might do some calls whilst I'm out on a walk or get a podcast on. I'm meditating every day at about lunchtime. And then I'm training 5 days a week.
Yeah. Meditation, that's foreign to a lot of people. What do you typically do with that? How long? Is it just on your phone, guided?
So I do a thing called transcendental meditation, or TM. And it's something I learned years ago, actually. And I've done it every day since. Ultimately, the concept is to, I can talk you through how it works, but basically it's an ancient tradition where you're saying a certain syllable, be it over and over again. And what it does is it quietens the monkey brain, part of your brain, which is constantly noisy, and takes you to a point where you're calm and you're not thinking about surface level things. So that just helps me to quiet down 10 minutes, and then that just sets me again for the afternoon session.
Yeah, right. And in terms of the training, what's your go-to? Running, gym?
Yeah, a bit of everything. Yeah, so mine is three cardio, 1 long, 2 short, and then 2 gym sessions a week.
Yeah, great.
Yeah.
Shane. I've got into meditation as well.
Have you?
Yeah. Not transcendental, but I like to do it every lunchtime.
I've noticed that you've been a bit more chill.
Thanks, man.
Maybe I need to do it.
Yeah, I think you should definitely do it. But no, I've been doing it for, I reckon, about a year now.
Yeah, how'd you find it?
At the start, when I felt like my wife sort of got me into it, and at the start I was just so awkward. Like I was really uncomfortable. I felt like, being honest, what the fuck am I doing, right? Sort of sitting there. But the longer I've done it, the longer you just persist with it. Yeah, and I said it could be 5-10 minutes a day. Just at lunchtime, I'll just lie down outside. Just brings you.
You're laying down when you do it. Is it a yoga nidra? Is that what you're doing? It's like a body thing.
Yeah, just lie down. I'll listen to a guided meditation, or sometimes just literally just find that area of focus, switch off.
Nice. There's a lot you don't know about Chris. It seems like.
Mate, I was like, who is this guy?
Concerts.
Do you know a while ago, I think it was my wife who was trying to say to me, like, you need to get some meditation to kind of calm your farm a bit. And I got this book online, like, because I just couldn't, it's ironic, right? I couldn't sit down and relax enough to do it. Yeah. And I got this book. It's called, I think by memory, it was called Don't Wait, just meditate. I read the first page and then just like got rid of it because I couldn't focus on it. So prime example.
That's right. Just get the calmer. It works.
Yeah.
You know, for beginners, like anything, you'll be uncomfortable at the start, but definitely works. Definitely shuts out the noise in the
Meditation
in the
for
old brain.
recruiters could be your next concept for you guys.
Yeah.
Get it going.
Breathwork for recruiters.
Breathwork for recruiters.
Yeah.
I'll be into that. I won't be running it.
No one can steal our idea. It's ours. Yeah.
Mate, I wanted to ask you, because I know you've got young kids at home as well. You're running a business. You're always managing big pipelines. Like, from a time management perspective, what kind of, how do you manage your days, your weekends and all that to fit all of that in? I know we've kind of spoke about specifics around, your 2-hour blocks for work, but how do you fit all the other stuff in to get the family time and time with kids?
Yeah, look, so it's a moment in time, I would say. So in terms of me personally, I'd probably say this is a maintenance mode. So I'm in a bit of a, luxurious position where I've been able to take this year, where I can take a little bit of a relative step back. You know, I'm probably itching to get back to the $1 million days, but it's been a place in time where right now what it looks like is the blocks throughout the day, and then come 5:30 or 6 to 8, I'm with my girls. And then if I need to be doing a session 8 to 10, I'll be on, might be a call with overseas. And then weekends, if I'm might need to do a Saturday morning block, which would be a sourcing block. But these are basically dependent on market conditions.
Yep.
We're really busy and we need to, I'm on. But if we're not, then it's been a bit of a slower past 6-12 months.
Yep.
Yeah. But those time slots remain for everything. So if you look at my calendar, probably same for you guys, every minute of the day has a block accounted for it and an outcome for that time. Basically, you just become laser focused and better with your time than ever before. I would say my outcomes are as good as they've ever been, probably working at about 50% capacity, to be honest.
Yep.
How do you handle the noise just in that, like, you've got your blocks, right? And, you walk in Tuesday morning, whatever it is, got your day planned, shit happens. I don't know, candidate doesn't rock up for an interview, client does this, it's recruitment. How do you maintain just your focus on those blocks while still, dealing with all the external noise and I guess other factors you have to as well? Does it distract you? Do you just lift a gear?
Look, our market, we're working with quite a senior market and they're pretty clued up, our candidates. So we rarely get candidates not showing up for interviews. We rarely get fallouts, to be honest. Our retention rate's really high. So it doesn't happen that much that I'd have to really get out of gear. We're a small business as well. We'd have a huge back office function or internal staff, which is a luxury to manage. So we really do have the luxury to spend all our time either sourcing candidates or spending it with clients, really.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah. One thing I was going to ask, and this is a bit off script here, is there any particular tech or tools that you use for yourself or in the business or on your desk that you found that's been really good or really useful?
So at the moment when we talk about those sourcing blocks, which is 2 hours per role, at the moment we're actually trialing some agentic, which will ideally get that down to, let's say, 10, 15 minutes if it works. So we're trialing an agent which would learn from how we source and then mimic our sourcing. So that would be number one if it works.
Yeah.
That'd be a real game changer. So we're looking at that. What other tools do we use? Your typical ones. We use some tools for market information and finding new companies as they come to region. We use some insights from a US-based company, which is kind of like a Glassdoor, but purely for the tech sales industry, which is really interesting. So that gives us information that other businesses might not have. Other than that, like a really basic one, I use a Pomodoro timer, which is an online timer, basically for my 2.5 hour blocks. Every time when that timer goes off, move on, you get a 5-minute break and then you set it again. That's probably about it from tech and the meditation. Otherwise, I would say, despite all the talk of AI, most of our work's still quite manual.
Yeah, got you. Last question I had for you, bit of a final thought. For any recruiters that are, maybe a couple of years in and looking to build a career, what tips or advice would you give them things they can do now that are going to help them in the long run?
Look, I think it's about proximity. So you've got to be in the action, particularly if you're in your early part of your career. So number one, I'd be in the office as much as possible. I'd be looking around the office and finding out, are there big billers in this office? Are people doing well? First of all, am I in a market which is going to allow me to do well? If you've got all the other traits, you've got resilience, you've got competitiveness, you've got discipline, and you know what you're doing, you know what you provide to the market, which doesn't have to be very complex. And you're in a market which has some urgency or has some pain and wants to use your services. All the ingredients are there, but I think proximity to somebody who knows what they're doing and is a top performer, the curve on your career is going to be huge as a result of that. I found going from career 1 to 2, I applied the same effort, the same efficiencies, the same skill, and I doubled my earnings, doubled my job satisfaction pretty much overnight. It's probably not the answer you were looking for necessarily, but I'd be looking around and seeing if I'm close to the people that I want to be like in 5 years.
I think that's a good answer.
So do I.
Yeah.
So do I. I think that's aspiration, right, for most people. But I think I agree with Lee. I think it's a great answer.
And it sounds a bit like a job advert for you guys already. If you want to look somewhere else, then go talk to guys.
Yeah.
That wasn't the reason for it.
If you want to work with top performers, we do know a lot of them. So reach out to Society. But in all seriousness though, mate, thank you so much for coming on at such short notice as well.
Awesome.
I think you've given us some really good insight, not only for our listeners, but for us today. So once again, thank you very much and all the best for 2026.
Pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you.
That's a wrap for this episode of The Special Sauce. We hope that you're walking away with some insights that you can actually use every day on your desk. If you enjoyed the conversation, follow, like, subscribe, or leave a review so we can reach more recruiters just like you. For more about Society, check out our website on society.com or follow us on LinkedIn. Thanks for listening and see you next time on The Special Sauce.